What's good with it in the hood with it? Welcome back to the Collective Clips where we get it in. But before we get it in, let's hit that like and subscribe button. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content I'm kicking. And I highly appreciate all the support I'm getting on this channel. We're going up and it's all because of you and I'm humbled. Thank you guys so much. So there's a lot of YouTubers I watch, a lot of content that's similar to mine's, or that I just latched upon and hey man, it's good entertainment. I love it. And I'm very interested in the intricacies and the details and how these certain content creators on YouTube do their thing. And one of the content creators I've recently started watching, I've been watching him now for about 8 months, is JD Delay. JD Delay's, he's a character, man, but he's righteous, right? He's real, he's solid. I know he's been where he said he's been because I fact checked it. I verified it, right? I went behind the scenes and got at a couple people that were actually in the same prisons as him. And I actually did time in the same prison as him. So I know, man, what he says is true. True to form, right? Now, the thing about JD Delay that I think I like the most is his aggressive way of communicating the positive. The way he puts out certain things out there, a lot of people, he might rub people the wrong way and they might not understand, but that comes with being a convict. That comes with doing time. When you've been incarcerated and you've done time righteously around some solid individuals, then you have a lot of stories to tell, man. And the reason why is not because he's shedding light on the gang violence within the system or, beat a chomo up. I mean, that shit happens constantly. But what he's more focused on, it seems like trying to detour you from taking your ass down that dark, lonely road, which is prison, which is a place of desolation, incarceration, and hopelessness. And there's a lot of individuals that are there. So we are the voices, myself, JD Delay, that speak and cry out for the people to try to help, to try to, persuade them to lead a different life. Enjoy the fruitivities of what you got going on out here. Enjoy the fruits of your labor, man. You want to be in there eating soups and summer sausage when you could be out here eating carne asada, tacos, and steak. Ain't no Taco Tuesday in prison. Ain't no taco nothing in prison. So I commend JD Delay. Now, he's from a particular prison gang, okay? The Irish Pride. And I've done time around these individuals, okay? He talks a lot about Oregon State Prison. And at one point in time, I did live up in Oregon and I was at OSP. I did an IMU time, which is basically your equivalent to the SHU in California. It's the intensive management unit. I know all about the different levels and A-pod and B-pod and death row was on the bottom. And I did all that, right? So when he talks about OSP, it brings back memories. But also I know that what he speaks is true. The difference between the Oregon system and the California system, there's a vast difference. Okay, whereas in California, it's very, very political and racial. And, chomos and rapos like Danny Masterson and all these weirdos, they're not going to walk, the general population yards. There's segregation there. Now they're trying to integrate everybody. And that's just a different philosophy that the CDC is doing. And I think they're doing that more so because the convicts won. They won a lawsuit and there's no more indeterminate SHU in California. So now that these guys, these high-ranking gang members and these guys are on these main lines, the administration is trying to figure a way for them to, to cause a wreck so they could slam them back. That's all that's about. So that integration is part of, causing conflict and turmoil. Most conflict that is caused in California prison has something to do with the administration putting people in certain places. That's just what it is. If you let everybody do their time, they're going to do their time accordingly. There are going to be removals. There are going to be pegadas, people getting stabbed. That's part of the game. That's prison. It's like that in every state. But more so, man, if you keep everybody in the correct lane where they're supposed to be, everything's going to see all right, cuz. Right? That's just how it is. Now, in the Oregon prison system, it's a little bit different. You have chomos. You have rapos. You have predators and pedophiles and all these weirdos on the general population mainline yards. And it's up to the convicts that are there to extract themselves from them situations, not hang around with them, or to basically, do what they do to these guys. Now, JD Delay talks a lot about, running up on chomos and being involved in certain things. And there's a lot of things he can't speak on. And I understand I'm in that same boat, on that same beat, in that same light. There's things that shouldn't be spoken on and will not be spoken on because statute of limitations never runs out. But at the same time, he does tell good stories. So when I first started watching him, he kind of piqued my interest. because he's from a gang, man, that had not an extensive history, but I did time with them and I know what they're all about. And that's the Irish Pride Gang. Now in California, you have your traditional white gangs. What's up, brothers? Oi, you have your skinheads, and there's different types from different areas. You have your NorCal, you have Coco County, you have Sonoma County, you have Southern California, Orange County skins, the IE, and then you have your Woods, what are just basically white dudes that get incarcerated, that don't believe in racial hatred or don't believe in any of that, but do support their race, do support their people. Again, like I said, in California, it's all racial lines. Blacks are going to function with blacks, Mexicans with Mexicans, whites with whites, and then you divide yourself up into your different sections, and that's what it is, right? That's pretty much how California is and always will be. Now, as far as Oregon, it's different. You do have some political groups, and you do have your traditional groups like skinheads, and of course, but they're all segregated into their own little prison gangs. They're not under one big group that's controlling the yard, whereas in California, we all know it's them letter boys that are controlling, the whites. In the state of Oregon, it's different. You have groups like the Insane Peckerwood Society, IPS. You have groups like European Kindred, EK, which at one point in time was probably the largest and most dominant white prison gang in Oregon. Then, of course, you have the IPs, the Irish Prides, which pretty much are guys that could trace their ethnicity back to Ireland. A lot of gingers. Let's just say that. A lot of guys with them red beards like JD DeLay. But they are no joke, man. They're very well respected within that Oregon system. They've been putting in work for a lot of years. And then, of course, you have different gangs. You have white Crip gangs. You have, in the state of Oregon, it's a predominantly white area. So there's going to be a lot of different white gangs. There was gangs like Northside Family, which, of course, they functioned real tough with Norteños at the time. But they were like a white blood gang, I believe. There was the DK, the Devious Crew, which were an anarchist crew. And of course, you have so many new ones. It's been years and years and years since I was in that system. So one thing I could say was the white guys, they did segregate themselves into their groups, but it wasn't conflict with like the blacks. I never seen like too many black and white issues. It was more so the white guys, they were on them chomos headpieces. They were on them fucking child molesters heads. They were constantly extorting them, beating them up, and getting them off the yards. Now, of course, you had Norteños, there was very few of them, and then you had the Southerners, which are deep in every prison on every planet. Even in Antarctica, there's a Southerner there working with NASA. They're everywhere, right? And they were pretty cool with the white gangs. Now, as far as being coexisting, everybody coexisted on these yards, and it was kind of like unspoken thing. You get into a cell, and just like California, people are going to ask for your paperwork. They're going to, your cellie's going to ask you. He's not even going to question. He's going to say paperwork. You hand him yours. He hands you his. If everything is good in the hood, then you guys can coexist and function. If not, there's going to be issues and problems. On them yards is a different story. On them yards, people used to judge people by the way they looked. You'd see a little old man come in, man, and what the fuck is he doing here? What does he has no reason to be in prison. And he would be judged. And he'd be preyed upon, and he'd be, beat up on, and that's not cool. You can't sit here and talk about being a convict and a real G, and you're beating up on little old men, man. But a lot of them guys have them characteristics and the looks of just a predator. It just was what it was, right? That's how the Oregon system was. You had to weed your way through the bullshit. There's, everybody is thrown together and mixed, and that's just the way that prison system has always been. It doesn't matter which prison you go to. There's several of them. There's always going to be some weirdos on the yard, and half the dudes that you kick it with you think are solid might be on some weird shit. Now, I remember when I first met the Irish Pride guys, I thought, okay, here's a group that have something in common. They all got Irish ethnicity, bunch of gingers, redheads, bunch of oys running around, good white dudes. And what I come to find out was they were no joke. They were no joke. They were founded by someone who was really with the program. If I'm correct, man, one of the main guys back in the days, I'm not going to say his name. He was a little small guy with the activities, was in there for like a double murder charge, was very well known and respected in that whole system. And it's a smaller prison system, Oregon rather than California. So everybody pretty much knows everybody. Everyone knows who the hitters are, who's about the business, what's up with it, right? But when it came to the whites, man, the groups that I knew to be pretty fucking solid were the IPs. They weren't to be joked around with or played with. They had their own rules and regulations, and they stuck together pretty solid. And then, of course, the EK, the European Kindreds. These guys were all a white gang that you had to, at least back in my days, you had to be able to trace your lineage back to the European countries, right? You had to be able to trace 100%, you had to be European. And then, of course, another vicious group, which I thought was probably one of the most fucking craziest groups there, was the KRBs, the Crude Rude Brood. The Brood was with the activities, and I happen to have a history with the Brood just based on, I have some family members that are from there. Trip out on that, right? So, I seen JD Delay talk about Irish Pride, and it started to take me back. And I was in EOCI, Eastern Oregon Correctional Institution. Man, they had sent me there. I told a story about it. I got there, took my shirt off. Everybody got up and walked away from the bleachers. They wanted zero to do with me because I was a Northerner and I was the only one there. And so I had to fight my way up out of that place, right? I had to do what I had to do. I was transferred to Oregon State Prison, and there was very minimal Northerners there. And, I just constantly did whole time, and eventually ended up in IMU because I had to fight my way out of the situations that I was in. Just happens, cool. Prison is prison. I'm used to it. So upon doing time in OSP, I did run into a couple guys from IP, Irish Pride. And I will say this, they had a lot of respect. Their whole thing, it seemed like to me from a distance, and I can't speak on for facts, but I could say for reals, they were smashing Chomos constantly. So when I hear JD Delay take a hard stance against Chomos, man, there's a lot of reasons behind it. I've watched a lot of his videos, man. He doesn't take too kindly because he has his own history of what's went on with him. And if you want to fucking peep game on that, then you go to his channel and watch it. I'll let him speak his truths and his facts. But I will say that this group that he joined, allegedly, were with the business. Now, of course, I have a brother-in-law who's from the Brood, okay? The Crude Rude Brood is another white organization, a group that was started on the streets of Portland, Oregon, right? They were actually street kids and homeless people that got together for self-preservation and protection, just like any other group and gang started. And they kind of started to get a little wicked, man. They're pretty vicious, right? That meth to change people, right? And a lot of them, and it's nothing but respects to them because they're hitters, right? A lot of them got incarcerated and started to, form their groups. And that's the difference between Oregon and California. A lot of their groups are homegrown. Every different group or gang from the streets that goes in there forms their own prison gang, and they do their own thing, and they're pretty well known if they put in work, right? But I asked my brother-in-law, I was like, hey, do you know this guy? Have you heard of him? And he goes, oh, I know a lot of the Irish Prides. I did a lot of time. I said, I did too. Have you ever heard of JD Delay? And he hadn't heard of the name, and of course, I'm sure JD Delay, that's not what they called him while he was incarcerated. I think that's just his YouTube name, his internet name, right? But he recognized him. Yeah, I recognize that guy, man. He looks very familiar, right? And, I talked to another homeboy that had did time. And I was like, do you know this guy? And it wasn't more so because I was trying to disprove him or talk shit. None of that. I just kind of wanted to get a background history on who he was. And he says, oh, I know him very well. He said, that dude is no joke and not anyone to be played with on any level. In prison, that was one of them ones, bro, that you knew he was a big boy and he'll smash you. He was with his people to the fullest. So everything JD Delay says, man, I don't take with a grain of salt. I take to heart and I know it's facts. We have a lot of the same understandings, a lot of the same types of content, and I respect it. Now, I can tell you a story, man. So I'm in OSP, right? I'm in OSP and they were having a car show there. They usually have car shows in OSP, and it reminds me of Tracy Prison. In California, in DVI and Tracy, they would have a car show. But anytime, I never hit the main line in Tracy Prison. I was always on reception. So that was our reception. They did have a main line there. Didn't mean I was a punk and I was scared. They had a main line there, and very few people, I think it was ex-dorm at that time, very few people were there. I think it was a level 2 or level 3. I'm not quite sure. But they would only send certain people there. And I never got to make it there, man. I wanted to. Everybody from the Valley wants to stay in either Jamestown or, of course, Pleasant Valley or Tracy because it's close to home. Visits and, it just seems like you're in the Valley. But they would have a car show there. I remember one time I'm listening out of my cell. They had War performing, doing little concerts. And, prison, sometimes they do that. Johnny Cash is known for going to Folsom, San Quentin. Los Tucanes, or was it, it was Los Tigres. They came to San Quentin. They have different, artists perform, people that, are just cool like that. So anyways, there was a car show popping at OSP. And I remember there was me and a few homeboys, and we were kind of trying to stay aware because we said if something pops off, man, the Southsiders would get off right here. This was our first time really functioning on that yard amongst Southsiders. Usually it was an on-site thing, but there was kind of some type of correspondence going on where it was like, hey, you do your thing, we'll do ours. So we're there chilling, and there was this chomo that everybody wanted to get to, right? He would stay in his cell 99% of the time, never came out. That's what most of them do. They're either playing Dungeons and Dragons on the yard, drawing, or doing some weird shit like that. You know, they're not functioning. And everybody knows who they are, like I said. And so these guys from Irish Pride were very cool with the Brood, right? Those were the two groups at this time that were just pretty cool. They were coexisting. They were both white groups. But again, it's not like California where everyone's under the AB and everybody is going to follow suit. These guys had their own mentality, their own ways of thinking. So they got with this guy's program, and this guy came out, and everybody was able to kind of look at the cars. They were roped off. You could take pictures by them or whatever. And they caught this guy in between two cars, and these IPs gave him the business. And I remember when they all got locked up in the hole for that, everybody was like, ooh, shit, them IPs are with the shit, with the shenanigans, right? And they were. You know, I could say that they kind of stood out to me amongst the rest. And I'm not just saying that because JD Delay's from there. It's just because, you know, I was always intrigued by, you know, a bunch of guys, leprechauns running around that fucking yard handling business. Again, man, solid white dudes, solid woods, coffee in the mug. Oi, brothers. They were doing their thing. But they were not to be fucked with, or they were not intimidated, you know. Again, the politics there were very different. So again, JD Delay, man, is a real one. He's absolutely real the way he functions. These stories he tells are truth. You know, I know a lot of people like to hate and think that we're glorifying prison. And myself, JD Delay, Dubs, certain other channels, man, that do prison content, we're not glorifying it. More so, we're telling you the truths of how it is, how it was for us, our stories, things we've seen and been a part of, things we can't tell you, we're trying not to. And it's not, you know, to lace you up per se on, you know, being a real gangster, because a real gangster is in you. You can't become that. You are that, you know. But all these people that sit here and woof and talk about, oh, I'm a real one, I'm a real one. You could tell the difference between someone who's done time and is incarcerated and knows the ins and outs of being on a 4-yard or a 3-yard or, you know, a real prison system, rather than someone who just did a few months in the ranch, man, or in fucking fire camp. And they're telling you stories that other people, you know, things that they've done. You know, it's just it's a vast difference. And that's why I shout out and I respect JD Delay's channel, because he absolutely is from where he says he's from, and he did that, and he's changed. I think that's what I like about him more so than anything, was I know, you know, how them white guys wiggled out there in Oregon, man. These guys were on meth. These guys were fucking out there fucking stealing everything in sight, beating people up. Them white dudes were they're functioning on the streets and in prison, in the system, right? Crazy white boys, right? White men, excuse me, just with the business, and they get incarcerated and the shit don't stop, you know. But I commend him on how he changed his life, because not a lot of guys get the chance, or not a lot of guys take advantage of the chance to do that. And now, you know, he's here on YouTube helping people as I'm trying to do myself, and I commend him for that righteously. But the IPs ain't the ones to be fucked with. Again, man, the Irish Pride, and in the system, the Oregon system is different because, like I said, there's so many different groups and gangs. You know, a white guy can get there and he doesn't have to be from one particular set. He could choose. And, you know, they try to recruit him. They do whatever they do. You know, as far as the Mexicans go, nothing stops, nothing changes. You're either a Paisa, a Southsider, or a Norteño, and that's just what it is. There ain't no in-between time. In the meantime, you're not just going to get there and be a cool Mexican dude that no one fucks with. You're going to choose up. And that's pretty much the politics of you know, there's a lot of guys from California that get locked up in different states. You know, I had moved out there for a while. I had family that lived out there. And so that's why I was living out there to try to get a new job and everything. And I did my little time, man, got in and out, and that was that. But I could say this for sure, man, it was a much different place. As far as kicking it on the yard with chomos, you have no choice. You kick it with who you kick it with. Okay, you go on these yards, man, and you gotta fucking dot your I's and cross your T's, because you don't never know who you're around. The most solid looking, all tatted back individual that you think is the most hardcore dude on the yard is probably in for rape. That's just truth, man. So you keep your circle very small. Only function or fuck with a few individuals that got solid paperwork. I told a story in the Paminate. I'm going to throw it in right now. You know, I met a native dude. And he was cool, and he kicked it with us. You know, the Norteños. There was only a few of us, and he was cool. And again, we checked his paperwork, facts. Checked that he was in on a gun case. Everything was good, right? And man, I like that dude. It was cool. And one day he gets into it on the basketball court. He's playing with the brothers, man. He's playing basketball, and him and this light-skinned brother, they didn't like each other. Maybe it's because the brother had good hair. I don't know, right? But they just didn't like each other. And they started getting into it. So they started pushing on each other. Everybody came. A few blacks, a few northerners were like, hey, bro, you know what I'm saying? You guys can't do this because, you know, it just ain't cool. And of course, we backed this dude up. He kicked it with us. So they kind of went in a blind spot, which is like an area the cops can't see. And they handled their business. And of course, the brother was getting on his shit. Boom, 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 giving him the business, right? This dude was doing the offense, defense, the sign of the cross and everything. He was getting fucked up, right? And I was getting more and more upset and angry because I felt like he was an extension off us. He's over here getting beat up. Now, you take wins and you take L's. That's part of the game. But this motherfucker was taking a big old L, right? He was taking the rock by him. That fool did the job that you can't see me on him and all kinds of shit. Suplexed him. I was like, damn. And there was a brother there. He was on the phone, right? And he said something like, yeah, beat that Mexican up. And the dude was native, but because I knew what he was trying to do. He was getting racial, right? So I turned around and I said, why don't you beat me up? And he said, what? And I cracked him. Boom. Started hitting him with the phone and it was on, right? And I got him. I broke his shit. And yeah, I didn't take an L this day. I won, right? You know, I always talk about taking L's. Well, there it was, a W for your ass, right? Like The Walking Dead, put one on your head, right? So I got him. They take us to the hole. In the Oregon prison system, you get 180s, right, for a fight. That's 180 days. Cancel Christmas. You're going to do 6 months solid in the hole, day for day. No, get out early. Fucking six months period. 180, right? So they give me a 180. They give the black guy. He apologizes on the tier. Hey, bro, I didn't mean to get racial, nothing like that. It's cool. You know, but I already know if we see each other, we're probably going to rush each other. But cool. So I'm in the hole. They bring the native homeboy and the other brother. They get caught up. They put the native homeboy right there, you know, on the bottom tier. I'm on the top tier. The brother that I fought, he's on the bottom tier as well. And then the other brother moves to a different section. And one of the homies comes in. And he's like, hey, bro, I'm going to shoot some paperwork right now. So he shoots me something down, and it's an article. And the article is the front page of a paper, and it has fucking the boy I backed up. The native dude has his picture like this, right? Just looking all methed out, all weirded out, right? And I'm like, what? And he was in for a whole bunch of SPM type charges, right? Chomoism shit. And I was like, I ate after him, right? I was all fucking mad. But you don't know. You never know someone, man, until you know someone, right? And I checked his paperwork. Like I said, he was in on a gun case. But, man, this was something he was in prior, you know? And just was what it was. Man, I told him, don't talk to me, bitch. And that was it. And I learned my lesson. You know, I stopped fucking with a lot of people. Anyways, man, shout out respects to JD Delayed, Irish Pride. That, like I said, that group right there in Oregon prison, man, is very with the business. Again, I can't tell you the details. If you want to learn the details, go on his channel. But I can tell you they're respected. He's respected. Like I said, the homie knew exactly who he was. And he says, hey, man, yeah, that motherfucker was a beast, bro. He was doing horrible things to horrible people. And I said, that's enough said. With that said, I hope that you move with a purpose. Get everything that you want coming. And remember, at the end of the day, it's all about the strive, the struggle, the struggle, the strive. Explore other content creators. Support everybody, man. You know, in the genre we're in, which is the box, man, the prison genre, there's very few and far between that are going to give it to you raw and uncut. I like to say myself. There's several others, man. And I know JD Delay is definitely one of them. Shout out, respects to him, to Dubs, to all these other prison channels that are doing their thing, man. I support it, man. I honestly do. You know, I can't sit here and tell you things I've been through without listening to things they've been through and not being able to co-sign it. I'll tell you right now, when it comes to JD Delay, Dubs, there's so many others, right, that have really been there. It's the truth, man. Facts. Bang, bang.